Rain poured in thin, silvery threads against the windows of the crowded city bus. The air inside smelled faintly of wet clothes and diesel, and over the dull hum of the engine came a soft, steady voice, calm, polite, and oddly comforting. It belonged to Aria Malik, the young bus conductor whose tired uniform couldn't hide the quiet grace in her movements. Every day, she punched tickets, smiled at strangers, and counted coins with the precision of someone who had learned to make every second and every rupee matter. But today was different. Sitting in the last row, hidden behind dark glasses and a wool coat, was Damian Reed, a billionaire known for his ruthless business tactics and glittering lifestyle. The world saw him as untouchable, a man of steel and scandal. But today, he wasn't here as a billionaire. He had escaped his world of power and pressure, seeking something real, something he couldn't buy. Aria didn't recognize him. Why would she? To her, he was just another passenger with a tired face. When he didn't have the exact fare, she simply smiled and said softly, "It's okay, you can pay next time." That simple kindness, the kind that expected nothing in return, hit Damian harder than he cared to admit. Over the next few days, he kept showing up, always taking the same seat, always watching her, quietly fascinated by her patience and the spark of joy she managed to keep alive despite everything around her. She laughed with street kids, helped old passengers off the bus, and sometimes, when the bus was empty and the city lights blurred past, she'd hum a song under her breath, a tune filled with longing and hope. One evening, as the city dipped into a soft orange glow, the bus broke down on a lonely road. Passengers grumbled, rain started to fall again, and Aria rushed out to help the driver. Without hesitation, Damian stepped out too, rolling up his sleeves and getting his hands dirty beside her. She glanced at him in surprise, a man in expensive shoes trying to fix an old bus engine. "Most people wouldn't help," she said, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. He smiled faintly. Most people don't get the chance to meet someone worth helping. That night, something shifted between them. Aria started noticing the little things. How he listened to her stories about her younger brother's schooling, how he smiled at the smallest details, how his eyes softened when she talked about her dreams. He wasn't like the usual rich men she'd seen from afar, loud, proud, and shallow. There was pain in him, loneliness too, buried under layers of sophistication. And for the first time in years, Damian felt human again. A week later, he waited by the bus stop, holding 2 cups of tea. When she arrived, soaked from the rain, he handed one to her. "For the world's most graceful bus conductor," he said lightly. Aria laughed, the sound brighter than the morning sun. "Careful," she teased. "You'll make people think you're flirting." "Maybe I am," he said quietly. Days turned into weeks. Their conversations grew deeper, from the color of the sky to the weight of dreams they both carried. She told him about her mother's illness, her fears of never escaping poverty, and he listened like her words were sacred. What she didn't know was that each day he was falling for her more fiercely than he ever thought possible. But love has a way of testing the truth behind every heart. And Aria's truth was simple. She had nothing to offer except her honesty. So when Damian's real identity was accidentally revealed on live television, billionaire Damian Reed, heir to Reed Industries, her world shattered. The next morning, when his car pulled up beside the bus, Aria wouldn't even look at him. "So it was a game," she whispered. "You followed me for entertainment?" He looked pained. "Aria, no. I followed you because for the first time in my life, someone saw me without the money." "Then why hide?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You think people like me can afford to dream of people like you?" Before he could answer, the bus door closed between them. For days, she avoided him. The city kept moving, but he felt frozen. The laughter, the rain, even the sound of her voice replaying in his mind. He didn't want her to love a billionaire. He wanted her to love him. The man who fixed buses, drank roadside tea, and found peace in her smile. One night, Aria returned home to find a small envelope under her door. Inside was a handwritten note. Asterisk, "For every mile this city drove us apart, I'll walk 1,000 more to find my way back to you." Asterisk. And beneath it, a bus ticket, the same route where they had first met. The next morning, she stepped on the bus, her heart pounding. He was there, sitting in the last row again, no suit, no luxury, just Damian, waiting. When their eyes met, the noise of the city disappeared. "I don't care about who you are," she said softly, "but if you lie to me again, I'll make you pay the fare double." He smiled, the kind that only comes once in a lifetime. And from that day forward, every journey they took wasn't just across the city. It was across each other's worlds, one ticket, one heartbeat, and one unstoppable love at a time. But fate, as always, had another turn waiting, one that neither of them saw coming. The rain had stopped that morning, but the streets still glistened, mirrors of cities slowly waking up. Aria felt her chest tighten as she approached the bus stop, her hands gripping the edge of her conductor's bag. The sight of Damian sitting there again, not in his tailored suit, not hidden behind wealth, but simply waiting, stirred something dangerous inside her, a warmth she had tried to bury under pride and caution. He stood as soon as he saw her, that same nervous, boyish energy flickering through his eyes. "You came," he said quietly, like he hadn't believed she would. "I came," she answered, brushing past him to step onto the bus. Her tone was clipped, but her voice trembled ever so slightly. He followed, sitting in his usual seat at the back. She didn't look at him the entire route, but she could feel his gaze, steady and patient, as if he was memorizing her silhouette all over again. When the bus reached the final stop and the passengers stepped off, Aria finally turned. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured. "Then tell me where to be," he said, his voice soft but certain. "And I'll go there, even if it's at the edge of your silence." She wanted to laugh, maybe even cry, but all that came out was a weary sigh. "You think words fix everything?" she asked. "You think people like me can just forget what it means to live counting every coin?" "No," Damian replied. "I don't think that. I just think you deserve to stop counting for once." The words lingered in the space between them, heavier than either expected. Aria turned away quickly, pretending to check her register, but her hands trembled too much to open it. Over the next few days, he didn't come. The bus felt emptier than usual, too quiet, too hollow. She told herself it was for the best. Billionaires didn't belong in her world. They belonged in places with marble floors and quiet orchestras, not in diesel-stained buses where dreams smelled like sweat and survival. Yet, every time she passed a stop where he used to sit, her eyes searched for him before she could stop herself. Then, on the 7th morning, her bus pulled up outside a massive glass building, the headquarters of Reed Industries. A crowd had gathered, journalists flashing cameras, people whispering about an event inside. Aria barely paid attention, focused instead on her route. But as she turned to help an elderly woman step off, a voice called her name from behind. "Aria." She froze. Damian stood a few meters away, surrounded by cameras and men in suits. His presence drew every eye, but his gaze was fixed only on her. For a moment, the noise, the chaos, it all vanished. "I've been looking for you," he said, stepping closer, ignoring the reporters who began to murmur curiously. "This isn't your bus stop," she whispered, heart pounding. "No," he said, "it's yours now." Before she could ask what he meant, one of the journalists shouted, "Mr. Reed, is this the woman you were talking about?" Aria blinked. What woman? Damian hesitated, but then squared his shoulders. "The woman who reminded me what it means to be human," he said, his voice firm. "The one who showed me that kindness still exists in a world that's forgotten how to feel." Gasps spread to the crowd. Aria's face flushed crimson. She wanted to run, to vanish, but his eyes held her still. "You shouldn't have said that," she whispered. "I had to," he replied softly. "You made me remember who I am." The media storm that followed was relentless. Overnight, Aria's picture was everywhere. The bus conductor who stole a billionaire's heart. The attention was suffocating. Reporters followed her home. Passengers whispered behind her back, and her boss threatened to suspend her because of unnecessary attention. By the 3rd day, she couldn't take it anymore. She found herself standing in front of Damian's mansion, something she had promised herself she'd never do. The gates were towering, intimidating. But when the guards saw her, he immediately opened them as if expecting her. Inside, the world felt foreign. Marble floors stretched endlessly, Chandeliers glittered like frozen stars, and the air smelled faintly of roses and money. Damian appeared at the top of the staircase, his expression unreadable. "You came," he said again, the same words as before, but heavier now. "I came," she echoed, her voice brittle, "to tell you to stop. Whatever this is, the interviews, the attention, it's ruining my life." He descended the steps slowly. "I didn't mean to drag you into this," he said. "I only wanted them to know you exist, that there's someone real in my life." "I didn't ask to be in your life," she snapped, her eyes glistening. "I never want to be some headline or charity project." His jaw clenched. "Is that what you think I see you as?" "I don't know what to think anymore," she whispered. "I just know I can't live like this." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her, quiet, almost pleading. "Then at least tell me this. When we were on that bus, when I was just a man with no name, did you ever feel anything for me?" Her silence lasted too long. When she finally spoke, her voice was trembling. "That's the problem," she said. "I did." And then she walked out, the sound of her footsteps echoing like tiny heartbreaks against the marble. Days blurred into nights. The media frenzy faded, but the emptiness didn't. Damian threw himself into work, meetings, deals, anything to drown the ache. But no number or profit margin could silence the memory of her laughter echoing inside his mind. Meanwhile, Aria quit her job. The stares, the gossip, it was too much. She took up part-time work at a small community library, spending her evenings surrounded by the quiet rustle of pages instead of the roar of engines. It was peaceful, but painfully lonely. One evening, as she locked up, she noticed a familiar car parked across the street. Damian stepped out. No suit, no entourage, just a single red rose in his hand. He looked exhausted, but his eyes still carried that same warmth, the same gravity that had drawn her in from the start. "I didn't come to ask for forgiveness," he said softly. "I came because I couldn't keep pretending the world made sense without you in it." She stared at him for a long time, the air between them charged and fragile. "You don't understand, Damian," she said finally. "Our worlds don't fit. People like me don't belong where you live." "Then I'll move," he said simply. "Wherever you are, that's where I belong." The sincerity in his voice broke something inside her. She looked away, blinking back tears. "You can't just say things like that." "I can if they're true," he replied. "You once told me people like me never fix buses, never get their hands dirty. But I will, Aria. For you, I'll fix every broken thing I ever touched, even myself." Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was electric, trembling with everything unspoken. The city lights flickered behind them, and the sound of rain began again, slow and rhythmic. He took a step closer, careful, almost afraid. "You once said you'd make me pay double if I lied again," he whispered, a hint of a smile ghosting his lips. "So, tell me, how do I pay for loving you this much?" Her breath caught, her heart aching and alive all at once. She wanted to answer, but the words stuck in her throat as the rain began to fall harder, wrapping them both in the same familiar rhythm that had started everything. And as thunder rumbled softly in the distance, she finally looked up into the eyes of the man who had crossed every boundary between worlds just to find her again. But before she could speak, a black car pulled up sharply at the curb, its door opening to reveal a figure Damian didn't expect to see, someone from his past who could destroy everything they had fought to rebuild. The sound of the car door cutting through the rain was sharp, almost unnatural in the stillness that surrounded them. Aria froze, her hand still half raised toward Damian. From the car stepped a woman, elegant, composed, with an umbrella held just so. Her presence radiated wealth and old secrets. "Damian," she said, her voice calm but cool, "you can't keep hiding from your world." He went still. "Mother." Aria's breath caught. Of all the possibilities that had flashed through her mind, this one she hadn't expected. The woman's eyes flicked toward her, not cruel, but assessing, the way one might glance at a stranger in the wrong ballroom. "So, this is the reason," she murmured. "The girl from the buses." Aria swallowed hard, wishing she could disappear into the rain. Damian stepped in front of her instantly, his voice steady. "This is Aria. and she's the reason I'm still standing." His mother raised a perfect brow. "Standing? Damian, you're destroying yourself. Your company is falling under scrutiny. The board is restless, and all for a conductor who doesn't belong in our world." He turned to her slowly. "Then maybe our world needs changing." The older woman's expression faltered for the first time. The rain fell harder now, tapping against the umbrella like impatient fingers. Aria stood silently behind him, torn between wanting to run and wanting to fight. She'd never been more aware of the gulf between their worlds, one made of glass, the other of grit and steel. "Mother," Damian continued, his voice quieter but edged with conviction, "you raised me to lead with reason, not arrogance. But for the first time, I'm not just leading a company. I'm trying to lead a life that feels honest. And she's part of it." "Damian," his mother warned softly, "you don't know what you're risking." "I do," he said. "Everything." The silence that followed was long and heavy. Then she sighed, not in defeat, but in something closer to sorrow. "You sound just like your father," she whispered, turning away. And look where that led him. She stepped into the car, and before leaving, her eyes met Aria's one last time. "The world doesn't change easily, my dear. Be sure you know the cost." The car pulled away, leaving behind the echo of her warning and the faint scent of roses. The rain softened again, a curtain slowly drawing back. Damian turned toward Aria, his shoulders shaking with the weight of what had just unfolded. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You shouldn't have been dragged into this." Aria shook her head, her voice barely audible. "You didn't drag me. I walked into it. Maybe foolishly, but willingly." The confession hung between them, fragile but fierce. He stepped closer, water dripping from his hair, his voice raw. "I don't know how this ends. I don't know if I'll lose everything I've built, but I know I can't lose you." Aria looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, she didn't see the billionaire who sat in glass offices or the man from magazine covers. She saw the same stranger on her bus, fumbling for change and smiling like the world wasn't watching. The man who fixed an engine in the rain. Her heart ached. "You might not have a choice, Damian. People like your mother don't lose. The world she built, it doesn't let people like me in." "Then we'll build a new one," he said simply. And somehow, in the way he said it, she believed him. Weeks passed, and the city began whispering again, not about scandal or headlines this time, but about something different. Damian Reed had done the unthinkable. He stepped down from his own company. The media exploded with theories. Some called it madness, others a statement of love that defied logic. No one could confirm where he'd gone, until one morning, in a quieter corner of the city, a familiar bus pulled up to its stop. The driver nodded to the man waiting there. Wearing a simple shirt, sleeves rolled up, Damian stepped aboard with the easy grace of someone who'd left his burdens behind. Aria turned when she heard the coins drop into her hand. For a heartbeat, she just stared, part disbelief, part wonder. He smiled softly. "Exact fare this time." She laughed, a sound that broke through months of silence. "You're out of your mind." "Completely," he admitted, "but I think I found where I'm supposed to be." He began helping with the passengers, lifting bags, guiding the elderly, making jokes that earned tired smiles. The people who once only read about him in glossy magazines now rode beside him, unaware that the man helping them was once one of the richest in the country. Days turned into weeks again. The bus route stayed the same, but something about the air was different. Lighter, freer. Aria would catch him humming along with her sometimes, both of them pretending they weren't aware of how their hands brushed when exchanging tickets. Then, one ordinary morning, a little girl offered Aria a folded newspaper. On the front page was a small headline tucked between world news. Former Billionaire Fund's free transit program for working families. Below it was a photo, not of mansions or cars, but of a city bus painted with new colors, brighter than before. Aria stared at it for a long moment, her throat tight. When she looked up, Damian was watching her quietly. "You did this," she whispered. He shrugged. "We did this. You showed me what matters." Her eyes softened. "And what's that?" "That love doesn't always look like power," he said. "Sometimes it looks like a bus ride through the rain. That night, after the last route ended, they sat together in the empty bus. The city outside was glowing, alive with lights and noise, but inside there was only the steady hum of quiet. Damian leaned back, his voice barely a whisper. I used to think love was about grand gestures, about winning. But with you, it's about peace. It's about belonging somewhere, even if that somewhere is a broken seat on bus number 47. Aria smiled faintly. You sound like a poet now. He chuckled. Maybe I'm just finally speaking your language. A soft silence fell between them, not awkward, not empty, but full. The kind of silence that holds two heartbeats moving in rhythm. Outside, the rain began again, painting silver trails across the windshield. Aria rested her head on his shoulder, her voice low. You left everything behind for this. Don't you ever regret it? He turned, his eyes meeting hers. No, he said simply, because I found everything I was missing. The rain thickened, drumming against the roof, but neither of them moved. The bus, the night, the city, it all blurred into something timeless. Two souls from opposite worlds, finding home in a place that had never belonged to either. Months later, the buses of that city bore a new logo, the Reed Community Line, affordable transport for everyone, funded by a man who once owned empires. No one knew the full story. They only knew that sometimes, in the early morning hours, when the streets were still half asleep, people could spot two figures sitting side by side in the front seat, a man with gentle eyes and a woman whose laughter could melt the chill from rain. And though the city never stopped moving, the world seemed to slow down just enough for them, because in a world obsessed with status, one poor bus conductor had done the impossible. She had stolen a billionaire's heart, and in doing so, had taught him that love isn't found in luxury or wealth. It's found in the simple act of choosing someone, again and again, no matter the distance between their worlds. And as the dawn broke over the glistening streets, bus number 47 rolled forward once more, carrying not just passengers, but the living proof that some stories aren't about riches or fame. They're about the quiet revolution of love, the kind that transforms everything it touches, without ever needing to make a sound. The engine hummed, the sky opened in color, and somewhere between the start and the destination, Aria and Damian smiled, as if the entire universe had conspired just to see them find their way home.